They said they're not making cuts, and they are making cuts. They said they weren't making cuts, and they are making cuts.
It's finished now, yeah, the council. They refused to let the representative from the Horn of Africa speak. They wouldn't let her speak, and so people asked them to leave, and they scuttled off to another room.
There's been no sense of real democracy, transparency. Lilly's keep quoting transparency in his press release everywhere, but there hasn't been any. Very few organisations have been given that right to speak, to have a deputation today for little informalities or formalities that they haven't been able to follow, because there's been very, very little information being given to all organisations that have confronted a public funding cut.
They left that meeting, went upstairs before we could get into the room. Only by the time two of us got into the room to ask questions, they'd made the decision and walked out.
Really?
30 seconds.
Were they not obliged to wait until all the councillors arrived?
Apparently not.
Right, okay, well, that's interesting. So were there any Labour councillors?
We got two of us in there, and two of us went in apparently, got in there, and one of them was allowed to ask one question.
Right.
That's not democracy. You know, when we was in power, we at least gave them the chance to put their case. We didn't agree with them, of course, but we gave them the chance to make their case. You know, they planned that tonight. They planned to walk out. They had that speech prepared. Disruption under Section 7. It was all prepared, ready to walk out.
Are you happy for me to quote you?
No, absolutely. It was obvious it was prepared. You know, you don't suddenly. I mean, I've been a councillor for 20 years. I didn't even know the legislation existed. You know.
Okay, yeah. So you think it was all there?
It's all there, ready. As soon as there was any disruption, under Section 7, I was going to go. What they should have done is suspended the meeting for 5 minutes to allow people to calm down. There's a lot of people there didn't have their chance to say anything. And I come all the way from Eastbourne down my side.
I think it was an absolute travesty that they didn't let the Horn of Africa speak. There was no democracy shown at all there.
Conservatives all stormed out. They wouldn't allow the Horn of Africa to speak. There must have been 300 people in the room. And I think if they were really open-minded to changing their minds, they would have not only allowed people to speak, they would have asked questions to those people who did speak. That didn't happen. So I can only conclude that was just a farce. It was a flawed process. A lot of people were brought here tonight to go through that.
It was quite clear that they had made their decision already. Councillor Lillis, the cabinet member who's responsible for taking the decision, he just repeated a prepared speech which he had made beforehand, and he made no specific comments about any of the organisations apart from to say that the decision was in line with the priorities, and he gave the clear impression that the decision had already been made.
We need to get the Labour Party back in power in London Borough Hammersmith. We've had enough of this nonsense.
As it was, the council decided to take the meeting upstairs away from the public because we insisted that the Horn of Africa spokesperson was listened to. We don't know the decision, we don't formally know the decision, but obviously we know they haven't changed their mind.
The Conservative councillors, I think they have the misunderstanding of how to cut the funding, because when you're cutting the funding, you don't cut the funding for the core organizations like the Law Centre, Horn of Africa, or any other like the community transport, which is vital for the whole community in large. And unfortunately, because they're just new to the councillors, and they don't understand how they've been away from the system for so long, and they don't understand who is working, and who is doing what. All they've done is they just decide for some reason or the other, and maybe for political reasons. And unfortunately, we've been trying to now move on with the help of the Law Centre. We've been trying to move to the cut the unemployment, to youth crimes, culture of this drug culture, knife culture, all this gun culture. We've been trying to tackle this unemployment, educate the community, and teach the youngsters. But while we were thinking that they will be very happy of our services, I don't think they understand what we are doing, or they don't even look properly what we are doing, because they're new to the system and they don't understand what most of this community they cut the funding are for.
I was here as a journalist. I think this is disgusting. I think it's a real problem. People are being cut.
if you're black, you're female, or whatever, too fucking bad. David Cameron needs to get down here and explain why there is this discrepancy between his rhetoric on television and the reality of poverty in the modern age.
All of our services is being actually cut at this moment. Black History Month is very important every year, and the Conservatives do not like ethnic minority as far as I am concerned. Okay, so let's get a Labour government back, a Labour local authority back in there, and a Labour government. And we all have to work hard towards that. Thank you.
And where is equal opportunities in all this? I mean, Cameron's coming down pretty hard on some of the people he's seen as racist.
Yeah.
Then Greenhoff turns around and says, what the fuck's going on with equal opportunities? He doesn't care about equal opportunities anymore. Who's taking any notice of it?
Everyone here today was from a group that don't have money, they're from different ethnic groups. I'm from a different ethnic group. You need support just to get started. People are not paying off the system, they're not ripping off benefits, they just need some support when they get started. When they leave some country, they get their heads bombed off, usually by people from the Western world.
I was very disappointed that the opposition councillors didn't get long enough to make the points that they made, that they wanted to make, and to actually ask a lot of questions, particularly concerns about the areas of housing. Not only are they cutting back on the really vulnerable services like the Broadway Centre for homeless people and people with alcohol problems, Turning Point for people with drug problems, but also general housing advice, because housing is one of the biggest issues in the borough. As the lady from the Law Centre said in relation to leasehold, it's not just about tenancies, but it's a big issue with private tenancies as well. So I was disappointed not to get an opportunity to say more about that.
I think it's a great shame if the borough's going to lose advice services, particularly such a good one as the Law Centre.
Access to the law should not mean the size of a person's bank balance, and with them wanting to cut 60% off their funding, it means that less and less people will have access to their legal rights.
Third Age Foundation, and unfortunately the council has decided not to fund us, although we've had 10 years funding from the council in the past, which we've used to lever in about £2 million from various sources, and we are very concerned that this is going to affect our future.
The council has given us very little opportunity to put our views across. They claim that transparency has taken place and it hasn't. Lots of organisations have not even been given a chance to speak tonight, and we were asked to leave the hall because one of the organisations actually wanted to speak and who was not allowed to speak. And the whole thing is lack of democracy. Whole council talks about transparency, it's just a hypocritical expression.
Should you vote for Cameron if you've got any social conscience at all? I suspect not. If not, can he come on television or YouTube or something and just say what he's doing and why he won't intervene in this kind of situation if he is the philanthropist and the social level that we're all led to believe today? I don't believe so.
I wrote to the leader to say, and who's now going to pay for it? And within a week I was writing to say, yes, I know who's going to pay for it: the elderly, the disabled, the learning difficulties, the mentally ill. And it was expected, but we will go on fighting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where's David Cameron now?